Let's start. I'm starting with CDS. It's probably like just a couple of hour topic. शुरू करें? What is a CDS? Stands for Credit Default Swap. Now, with CDS, we will generally avoid the term long and short now. Okay, so going forward, I will refrain from using the word long or short. I will use the term a buyer and a seller. Okay, more appropriate term is a protection buyer. A protection buyer, that's one party, and a protection seller. Now, generally in the CDS world, the seller is supposed to be long and protection buyer is supposed to be short. Okay, but you'll understand that very soon why, and that causes a lot of confusion. So therefore, we would not use the word long and short at all, and curriculum does the same. Instead of using the word long and short, curriculum uses the word protection buyer, protection seller. The product is very simple. You might know this already from level 1. Imagine there is a reference obligation. Okay, reference obligation could be any bond. Let us say we're looking at some Apple bonds of a particular issuance, right? Particular maturity. The CDS will have a notional principal, let's say about $100 million. It will have a reference obligation. Reference obligation is Apple bond. Now what protection buyer will do is, to protection seller, every year it will pay some premium. Okay, it's almost like an insurance premium. Now for Apple bond, that premium could be typically in the range of, let's say 1%. 1% of what? 1% of 100 million. Okay, so every year buyer will pay to seller $1 million. In return, what will protection seller give to buyer? Protection seller will give to buyer just one thing. What's that? A promise. Okay, that's it. Just a promise. Promise to do what? Promise to make credit losses good on the reference obligation, which is Apple bond. Okay, so the correct way to say this is in case of a credit event, and credit event is predefined. Like what constitutes a credit event? For example, a company not paying interest on time, is that a credit event? Yes, but a company not paying interest on time because the day on which it was supposed to pay interest happened to be a public holiday. Okay, this is referred to as a technical default. So in these situations, what companies generally do is a day in advance, they will notify the bond trustee that, hey, we will not be able to make payment tomorrow because banks band hai. So hum log 2 din ke baad will make payments after 2 days. If that's notified, then in most of the CDS product, it's not a default. So there is a very detailed definition of what constitutes a credit event. Since it's a OTC product, therefore both the parties can negotiate on what is a credit event. Okay? Now imagine Apple bond has a credit rating of AAA. For some reason, Apple's credit rating fell down to AA. Is that a credit event? Credit rating kam ho gaya. Is that a credit event? No. Credit event बहुत simple भाषा में मतलब होता है default. Credit rating fell down, not a credit event. Are you getting hang of it? It simply means default. Okay, it generally a technical default or whatever nature of default. Credit rating girna is not a credit event. In case of a credit event, I will make losses good. Okay, but this becomes important. Now let's say Apple के bond का price बहुत ज़्यादा गिर चुका है. Apple bond price has fallen. Why? Because interest rate in the economy has gone up. Okay. Is protection seller going to pay anything to protection buyer? No. You're not protecting against interest rate risk. You're protecting only against credit risk. Are you with me on this? So अगर Apple default करेगा तो ही मैं पैसा देगा. That's a very simple way to think about this. However, it's like when you buy options, you make money, let's say a call option. It says you have a right to buy. Do you make money only when you exercise a call option? Not necessary, right? You make money even if you've not exercised, but underlying asset price has gone up, आपके call option का value ऊपर जाएगा. The same logic works with CDS. So imagine I bought Apple CDS. I paid 1% premium. For some reason, Apple's credit rating went down. Okay. Seller will not pay me anything. However, the value of my CDS in the market has gone up. So I can now sell my CDS and make some profit out of it. So technically, even though it does not trigger a payment from seller to buyer, it automatically provides you protection against all the credit situation, because CDS is a market product, which means marketable product, but मैं उसको बेच सकता है. And because I can sell it, every time there is some credit news, it will take the price of the CDS either higher or lower. That's the broad concept of this. Now, what is really beautiful about this product, or not so beautiful, is it is not necessary for a protection buyer to have purchased Apple bonds. So imagine I'm a random observer. I somehow feel कि Apple डूबने वाला है. Apple credit risk is going to increase significantly for whatever reason. I have the thesis. Now I can go in the market and simply enter into a CDS trade. It is not necessary for me to have exposure to Apple bonds. So conceptually, if you think about it, a protection buyer is nothing but short Apple. A protection buyer is hoping that Apple डूब जाए. And specifically, it is short Apple, but on the credit front. That means you're not hoping that interest rates will go up and therefore Apple bond price will go down. You're hoping that credit spreads will go up and therefore Apple bond price will go down. And a protection seller is nothing but long Apple credit. So a protection seller is hoping that Apple credit risk will improve. That means credit situation will improve. A seller is hoping that Apple credit situation will deteriorate. Okay? Now, Aditya, just stay put for a bit. Let me just throw a valuable point in here. Think from a protection seller perspective for a bit. Imagine you're the protection seller on Apple. You sold protection and parallelly you also purchased a treasury bond. Okay? Now, think of these two positions combined together. Think what's happening. You bought treasury bond, so every year you're earning RFR, and on top of that, every year are you also earning the credit spread of Apple? So technically buying a treasury bond and selling a CDS is equal to buying Apple bond. So when you design portfolios like these, it was there in your level 1, but maybe some of you didn't capture it. This is referred to as a synthetic CDO. Have you heard of these CDOs, collateralized debt obligation strategies? Right? There's something called as a synthetic CDO. Synthetic CDO means it's almost like a mutual fund that's available to large investors in the US. This mutual fund is supposed to buy different bonds, but I can create this bond synthetically by simply buying treasury and buying or selling protection on the CDS. So these guys are big sellers of the CDS in the US market. Any questions you would like to ask here? Correct. A protection seller might have to deposit margin depending on the agreement you've made. But if you want to run this strategy, you have treasury bonds with you that you can post as collateral. If this strategy is what you're running. And otherwise, if you're running a plain structure, yes, both the parties will have to deposit the margins. Depending on whether it's a bilateral trade, multilateral trade, depending on whether CCP is involved or not involved, depending on what agreement you've signed with the counterparty, depending on what constitutes, what contents you have in your CSA. CSA stands for Credit Support Annex, right? It's an annexure to your the agreement. So this CSA will have all the information on what kind of collateral is posted, what frequency it will be valued, how frequently will you do mark to market and all of that stuff. No, different. CLO is typically a private equity product. Have you heard of leverage buyouts? right? So all the loans that are generated on the leverage buyouts typically are put under a CLO product. We have manager in CDO, CLO everywhere. Why does a protection buyer simply go and short the bond? See, shorting bond is extremely tough. In fact, because in order to short anything, what do you need to do? Borrow, right? So you need to borrow that underlying asset. And most of the in bond market, it's not easy to borrow bonds and short. We'll go there, Danush, step by step. Sham, I've done, if you refer to my video, I've done a detailed explanation on what went wrong in 2008 crisis. Today is not the time to that. How liquid is a CDS? Reasonably liquid, depending on what CDS you have purchased, Aditya. So there is something called as a single reference obligation CDS. A single reference obligation CDS means Apple के ऊपर CDS on Coke bonds, CDS on, let's say, Morgan Stanley bonds, versus there is also a product in the US and London market called the index CDS, where you have 100 reference obligation. It's like a hypothetical index made. Those are extremely liquid part of the market, right? So those you can buy and sell even in OTC fairly easily. A single reference CDS may or may not be liquid depending on which is the reference obligation. There are some ETFs, I guess. Uh, we can look that up. It will be tough to execute because your underlying asset will be an OTC product. But in the US, they have a type of ETF called alt ETFs, right? All the alt ETFs, they bring in hedge fund strategy in an ETF structure for retail investor. So there can be. Okay. Any questions? Fine. So now let's get a little more technical on the CDS. What I'm showing you now is two things. One is I'm going to show you, we're going to discuss something called as a CDS upfront premium. Okay. And along with that, we are also going to learn how to do CDS valuation. Now, my technique is going to look completely different than the CFA curriculum, especially on the CDS valuation front. We've just started. So we are looking at CDS upfront premium and we're looking at CDS valuation. On the valuation front, my technique will look different. There are formulas in the curriculum. You don't need those formulas. Okay. So either you follow the curriculum method or you follow mine. Don't use both. That'll cause confusion. But just use mine because it's better and it's much more easier to comprehend. Now observe what's happening here. Remember the premium I spoke about where a seller pays premium to buyer every year? Hai na? Sorry, buyer pays premium to seller every year. Now, logically, this premium, how much do you think the premium should be? It should be equal to credit spread, right? Jitna zyada risky, utna zyada premium. However, for some reason in the international swap market, this premium is fixed, which is kind of weird, but premium will always be 1% or 5%. So you need to memorize these two numbers, 1% or 5%. If it's an investment grade bond or reference obligation, okay, I'll be using that shorthand. Reference obligation means your underlying bonds. Okay. So if it's an investment grade reference obligation, premium will always be 1%. And if it's a non-investment grade, that means junk reference obligation, premium will always be 5%. But that's kind of counterintuitive, right? Because, what if I have an investment grade bond, but it's triple B minus. Is triple B minus investment grade? Yes, it is. Anything, Ayush, rating triple B and above is investment grade. Double B and below is non-investment grade. So is triple B negative investment grade? Triple B minus. But it's triple B minus negative outlook investment grade. Negative outlook. Yes or no? Yes again. So generally within triple B, there are three ratings. Okay, there is simply triple B, then there is a triple B plus, then there is a triple B minus. Within each rating, there is something called as an outlook. Okay, outlook could either be ये rating वाला बंदा हाँ बोलेगा कितना outlook होता है हाँ simple outlook stable. It would either be positive or neutral or stable, or outlook could be negative. It means right now the rating is triple B minus, but we feel that in the next review cycle our outlook is negative. In the next review cycle we might downgrade. हाँ ना समझ में? So imagine it's a triple B bond. Right now the credit risk of the bond is 3%. Okay, but by virtue of being triple B, is it investment grade? Yes. So CDS will have a fixed premium, and now I'll start using the word coupon for it. A CDS will have fixed coupon of 1%. So obviously, the buyer of the CDS is very happy. क्यों? क्योंकि risk मिल रहा है, risk है 3% का, but I'm paying how much? Only 1%. But think from a seller of the CDS perspective. Is the seller compensated enough? No. So do you think she will write the contract? Of course not, right? So then in order to induce the seller to write the contract, what the buyer will say is, buyer will say, because of international conventions, I have to pay you 1% every year. But technically I owe you how much? I owe you, let's say, 3%. So how much is the shortfall? 2%. So maybe if it's a, let's say if it's a 10-year CDS, I'm just making it up. Okay. Maybe I pay you a little bit in advance, upfront. I know. Every year I'm paying you 2% less. So maybe I pay you a little bit more. Now, the seller of the CDS says, okay, that will work. What you do is, every year 2% into a 10-year CDS, you pay me 20% premium upfront. Now, imagine you were the buyer. Will you agree to it? No. Why? क्योंकि मैं upfront दे रहा हूँ तो कम दूंगा ना. And if I'm paying upfront, then why should I pay 2% into 10? There's time value of money. So therefore, what we generally do is we don't multiply that 2% with duration of the tenure of the CDS. We rather calculate a duration. Because remember, duration is nothing but some sort of a present value estimate. Correct? So if the duration is 8 years, then I take the difference between the coupon and the credit spread and multiply that with 8, that becomes 16%. That would be the upfront premium paid by whom? Buyer to the seller. Will the direction always be from buyer to seller? No, it could be other way around. For example, let's say now we have a AAA bond. Now AAA bond has a credit risk of only, let's say 0.7%. Okay, but every year buyer will have to pay how much? 1%. So is buyer paying more or less? More. What is the delta? 0.3. So 0.3 into 8 is how much? 2.4%. So this time upfront premium will go from whom to whom? Seller to the buyer. So the first thing that I want you to just learn is to figure out who will pay upfront premium to whom, which is simply a difference between the coupon rate versus the credit spread. Okay, so let's create some scenario. I'll make a nice table for you here. Let us say this is investment grade, this is non-investment grade. Okay, let's create scenario 1. Tell me, and for all of this, we'll assume CDS contract for 10 years and duration of the CDS for 8 years. Okay. Investment grade, what is the coupon? 1%. Non-investment grade, what is the coupon? 5%. Why is that? Fixed conventions, right? Now, let's assume the credit spread, okay, credit spread in this situation happens to be 2.5%, and the credit spread here happens to be, let's say, 7%. So now how will you think of this scenario? You will think that protection, and always think from the protection buyer perspective. So the protection buyer, okay, protection buyer is overpaying or underpaying? Underpaying. How much? 1.5%. Here again, think from protection buyer. Protection buyer. Overpaying or underpaying? Underpaying. By how much? 2% per annum. Okay. Therefore, the upfront premium should work like this. If I'm a buyer and a seller, since I'm underpaying, I will have to pay the upfront premium. Is that conceptually working for you? Buyer will pay upfront premium to the seller. Now, how much will that be? So you take the delta, 1.5%. Viraj, this delta you will multiply with duration. So 1.5% into 8, that will be 12%. And here 2% into 8, that will be 16%. So you do that initial upfront transaction and then you keep on doing your regular recurring annual payments. Is that making sense? Scenario 2, एक मिनट मैं खत्म कर लेता हूँ फिर पूछो. Scenario 2, let's say now the credit spread happens to be 0.6% and here 4%. So now think about it. Now in this scenario, who do you think should pay to whom? Correct. This time it will be the CDS seller to buyer. How much would that be? 0.4% multiplied with 8, that will be 3.2%. How about here? Buyer and seller. Who will pay to whom? आयुष आप बताओ यहाँ पे. कूपन 5% है, क्रेडिट स्प्रेड 4% है. Buyer to seller or seller to buyer? Every year who pays coupon to whom? जो हर साल प्रीमियम देना है वो कौन किसको देता है? Every year buyer will pay to seller. If it's a non-investment grade bond, how much will they pay? हर साल buyer seller को कितना टक्का देगा? नहीं, ये फिक्स है ना. हर साल जो कूपन होगा, every year coupon is fixed, right? This is not changing. Every year buyer will pay to seller either 1% or 5%. ठीक है? So since we are dealing with a non-investment grade bond, every year the payment will be of 5%. But technically risk is of 4%. So is buyer overpaying or buyer underpaying now? Risk 4% का है, but मैं हर साल 5% दे रहा हूँ. Buyer is overpaying. So if buyer is overpaying every year, then who should receive upfront payment? Buyer. From whom? Seller. So the upfront payment will go from seller to buyer. Okay. How much? 1%. 1% into duration of 8. So that will be how much? 8%. So this is your fundamental building block. This needs to be crystal clear. If you don't understand this, you will not understand anything that happens after this. Ask me questions now. हाँ, बोलो. It's the duration of the CDS, not reference. Because duration is already a. If you remember, how do you calculate Macaulay's duration? It's an average maturity of sorts. So duration is already a time value adjusted. So when we say a bond has a maturity of 10 years, and when I say duration is 8, it means a weighted average maturity is 8 years. Because you're getting money at different point in time. So duration is already an maturity adjusted number. So in case of CDS is an equal weighted payment, right? Because every year you pay the same coupon. So I assign the same probability and then I take a weighted average. That becomes the duration of CDS, which is nothing but a present value estimate. समझा ना? So when I'm multiplying with duration, it simply means think of that duration as a present value annuity factor. हम present value annuity factor होता है ना कि 5 साल है 4 से मल्टीप्लाई किया तो प्रेजेंट वैल्यू आ गया बस वही. हाँ. ओके. ओके. you ask me that question in 5 minutes. Because right now what we've done is only this part, which is CDS upfront premium. What we've not done is this part, is CDS valuation. We'll go there. So again, let me summarize this for you so that you're not confused. It's very easy. Don't make it complicated. Dekho, what is an annual transaction? If it's an investment grade bond, okay, a buyer every year will pay to the seller. How much? 1% per annum. And if it's a non-investment grade transaction, a buyer every year will pay to the seller how much? 5%. This is fixed. Okay? Now, if the credit spread, okay, if the credit spread is more than 1%, that means if the credit spread is, let's say, 1.5%, okay, and let's assume duration of 8 for simplicity. So then you think from the buyer perspective, you say 1.5% hai, but every year I'm paying 1%. So think from buyer perspective, buyer is underpaying or overpaying? Credit risk 1.5% का है, हर साल आप कितना दोगे कैश में? 1%. So every year you're underpaying or overpaying? Every year buyer is underpaying. Therefore, buyer should pay upfront premium. So upfront premium will go from buyer to seller. Buyer should pay upfront premium. That's it. Okay. Think of a different scenario. Let us say credit spread, okay, happens to be 4%. Now think from buyer perspective. Every year buyer is paying 5, but credit spread is 4. Is the buyer underpaying or overpaying? Overpaying, right? So every year, let me write down every year. So every year, the buyer is overpaying. If buyer is overpaying, then what? Buyer should receive upfront premium. Buyer should receive upfront premium. Bas khatam. That's the core of it. Is this okay? Good. Now, if you understood this, then here is how you learn to value CDS. Okay, so how do you value a CDS? Valuation of CDS will always be 100 plus or minus upfront premium. What is an upfront premium? Upfront premium is nothing but difference between coupon and spread multiplied with duration. So the valuation of CDS will always be 100 plus or minus upfront premium. Okay? Now, how will you do the valuation? When will it be plus? When it be minus? How to decide this? So what you need to do is, जो annual premium है, that annual premium you have to think like a coupon versus the credit spread you think like a YTM. That's it. Annual payment that you make, which is going to be either 1% or 5%, you think of this like a coupon. And the credit spread, you think like a YTM. For example, let's assume a situation where annual coupon is 1% investment grade. Okay, same example here. And the credit spread is, let's say 1.5%. Okay, credit spread is 1.5%. And let's assume duration is 8. So you tell me, should it be 100 plus or should it be 100 minus? 100 minus. Why is that? Because it looks like a discount bond. So 100 minus. What is the difference between 1 and 1.5? 0.5% multiplied with duration 8. Valuation of the CDS is 96. That's it. Easy? Now, in the same way, let's look at a coupon of 5% and YTM of 4%. So 100, you tell me whether it will be plus or minus. Now it will be plus. Plus what? 1% multiplied with duration of 8, 108. If you understood this, CDS valuation is also done. Any questions? So value of the CDS will keep on changing. No. So now if I've made the upfront payment, that's because I'm buying the CDS at a premium. Because every year I'm going to get a coupon of 5, whereas the spread in the market is only 4. So obviously this CDS contract is worth more than 100, right? So therefore that 108 is justified. It's similar to how you buy a bond at a premium. Of course, I'm paying an upfront premium, but I'm paying it because every year I'm receiving extra coupon. So same logic here. समझा? So आप हर साल 5% दोगे, but आप शुरुआत में 8% दे दोगे because your asset is not 100, your asset is worth 108. That's it. Now, Vikas, very simple. Think of annual premium as coupon. Okay, and think of credit spread as YTM. और फिर simple logic लगाओ, is it a discount bond or is it a premium bond? For example, if coupon is 1%, YTM is 1.5, it looks like a discount bond. If it's a discount bond, it should be 100 minus. If coupon is 5%, YTM is 4%, it's a premium bond, so it should be 100 plus. Online, can you please confirm if you're with me on this? Is this clear? Can I move forward to the next part? Then, of course, we'll practice a lot of questions on this. We have the whole session tomorrow. Okay, good. Fantastic. Very happy. Assuming you've understood this, now, in the CDS world, Dhruv, there is a concept called cheapest to deliver. Okay, now what is cheapest to deliver? So let me explain. I am a protection buyer. I have purchased Apple bonds. Okay, now what kind of Apple bonds I have? Let's assume I have Apple bond of, and just for simplicity here, tomorrow I'll show you a little more technical part on this, but right now just to build an overview, I have a series 1 bond of Apple, almost feels like an iPhone here, but series 2, series 3. Okay, Apple has issued 3 different series of bonds. Now, when I mean series, it could mean seniority, right? But I don't want to get into seniority just yet. We'll go there tomorrow. Let's assume all of these bonds have a face value of 1,000 and similar characteristics of coupon and everything. Now, what I did is I bought a CDS on. I got into a CDS contract with a protection seller. Okay, and I paid a premium every year of 1%. ठीक है, so मैंने क्या किया, एप्पल पे प्रोटेक्शन खरीद लिया. अब ध्यान से सुनना. Now what happened is, on one of the 3 eligible bonds, okay, there was a credit event. Now the concept in the bond market is, once you default on any of the bonds in your cap structure, it's a technical default on all the bonds. So एक बार default तो सब default. So now there is a default, and after the default, what has happened is this bond has fallen down to a price of 700. This bond has fallen down to a price of 600, and this bond has fallen down to a price of 750. Now the seller is required to make my losses good. है ना, very loosely make my losses good as in जो भी मेरा नुकसान होगा वो उसको देना पड़ेगा. So then, assuming there are 2 possible situations in which it can be settled. Okay, so settlement के 2 protocols है. How will the settlement of the contract work? क्योंकि हम लोग assume कर रहे हैं, we are assuming that credit event हो चुका है. So credit event is triggered. So the answer is no. One settlement is called delivery. Another settlement is called cash settlement, like all other derivatives that you're aware of. Now, when I'm doing delivery, what seller will give me, okay, what seller will give me is 1,000 rupees or $1,000. Now, what the buyer will give depends on, should I give series A bond, or should I give series 2 bond, or should I give series 3 bond? You would say, how does it matter? It matters because they're trading at a different valuation. है ना? Series A, 1,000 rupee bond fell to 750. Series 2 fell to 600. Series 3 fell to 700. This is where we invoke the cheapest to deliver convention. So which means यहाँ पे cheapest to deliver कैसे है? That I can deliver a series 2 bond. That means I will deliver a series 2 bond which is worth how much? Which is worth 600. Therefore, for cash settlement, the seller will pay me how much? Seller will pay me $400. Is that making sense? So what kind of questions in the curriculum? On the curriculum, there's a question which says, okay, these were the 3 eligible bonds, but you were owning only series 3. ठीक है, ये तीनों भी bonds eligible है, but आपके पास सिर्फ series 3 वाली bond है. So when you want to do settlement, should you prefer delivery or cash settlement? That's the question in the curriculum. What is your answer? Cash settlement. Because if I do delivery, how much do I get? 300. But why would I do delivery when I know in cash settlement I can get 400 and I can sell my 700 rupee bond in the market? And instead of doing delivery of 700 bond and getting 1000, I can just do a cash settlement for 400 and sell it at 700. That's it. That's your cheapest to deliver convention on these bonds. Ask me questions here. The cheapest to deliver is from the perspective of the protection buyer. देखो, डिलीवरी मतलब अंडरलाइंग एसेट देना और उसके बदले में कैश लेना. जैसे फ्यूचर में डिलीवरी होता है ना, कि जैसे मैं कॉन्ट्रैक्ट बनाया कि मैं सोना खरीदूंगा, तो आई हैव अ राइट टू बाय एट सम एक्स अमाउंट, सो आई विल गो एंड गिव कैश एंड देन इन रिटर्न आई विल गेट द फिजिकल एसेट. वर्सेस कैश सेटलमेंट मीन्स जो मेरा कॉन्ट्रैक्ट वैल्यू वर्सेस द एक्चुअल प्राइस इन द मार्केट, जस्ट द डिफरेंस ऑफ द टू वुड बी ईदर पेड और रिसीव्ड इन कैश. How can we decide whether to choose delivery or cash? This is exactly what I... Okay, that's fine. Do you understand what is a delivery settlement versus do you understand what's a cash settlement? Okay. So the question that I was talking, okay, let me just get back here. See now, as a buyer, in case of default, my job is to deliver any of the eligible bonds. To whom? To protection seller. तो मैं ये सीरीज 1, 2, 3 में से कोई भी एक बॉन्ड सेलर को दूंगा. सेलर मेरे को बदले में कितना देगा? 1000. अब लॉजिक ये है कि बॉन्ड 1 इज अवेलेबल एट 750, बॉन्ड 2 इज अवेलेबल एट 600 एंड बॉन्ड 3 इज अवेलेबल एट 700. तो मैं कौन सा बॉन्ड दूंगा? आई विल ऑब्वियसली गिव 600. दिस इज कॉल्ड चीपेस्ट टू डिलीवर. तो मैं जो मेरे पास जो 600 रुपये की बॉन्ड पड़ी है जो ऑलरेडी मेरे पोर्टफोलियो में है, उसको मैं लेके एक हाथ से उसको दे दूंगा, बदले में उससे 1000 रुपया ले लूंगा. खत्म. ये हो गया डिलीवरी. मतलब ही मेरा फायदा कितना हुआ? 400 रुपये. तो सामने वाला मेरे को 400 रुपया उसकी जगह कैश दे दे, तो वो गया कैश सेटलमेंट. राइट. सो इफ आई हैव बॉन्ड 2 अवेलेबल विथ मी, देन वेदर आई डू डिलीवरी और आई डू कैश सेटलमेंट, इट डजंट मैटर, कि दोनों में 400 का ही फायदा है. बट लेट्स से फॉर सम रीजन मेरे पास बॉन्ड 2 नहीं, मेरे पास बॉन्ड 3 है. ठीक है. अब अगर मैं बॉन्ड 3 दे दूं, जो 700 वाली बॉन्ड है, उसके बदले में मेरे को कितना मिलेगा? 1000, है ना. तो फिर मेरा फायदा कितना हुआ? 300 रुपया. बट अगर मैं कैश सेटलमेंट कर लूं तो वो मेरे को कितना देगा? 400. तो फिर मैं क्या करूंगा? कैश सेटलमेंट करूंगा. सो इन केस ऑफ चीपेस्ट टू डिलीवर यू विल हैव 2 पॉसिबल आंसर. ए, यूर इनडिफरेंट. अब कब इनडिफरेंट होते? अगर आपके पास सीरीज 2 वाली बॉन्ड होती तो आप डिलीवरी कर लो या कैश सेटलमेंट कर लो, फर्क नहीं पड़ता. और सेकेंड आंसर ऑन द एग्जाम वुड बी प्रिफर कैश सेटलमेंट. व्हेन विल यू प्रिफर कैश सेटलमेंट? इफ यू करंटली ओन सीरीज 1 बॉन्ड और सीरीज 3 बॉन्ड, इन दैट केस कैश सेटलमेंट विल गिव यू अ बेटर पे ऑफ. दैट्स इट. समझा? सो कैश सेटलमेंट इज ऑलवेज कैलकुलेटेड फ्रॉम द पर्सपेक्टिव ऑफ चीपेस्ट टू डिलीवर. ऑनलाइन. हाँ जी. बिकॉज मेरे पास पड़ा है ना बॉन्ड वो. Right, so see what happens is, I'll tell you in practice what happens is, a lot of investors by mandate legally are not allowed to buy non-investment grade bonds, जैसे पेंशन फंड, क्योंकि यूएस में एक एक्ट है एरिसा नाम की, तो जिससे या नॉन इन्वेस्टमेंट ग्रेड बॉन्ड्स खरीदना अलाउड नहीं है. However, if I buy a non-investment grade bond and I buy a structured product from my bank where they combine a CDS with it along with it, तो क्या होता है कि जैसे मैं अब यूएस का ट्रेजरी आज खरीद लूँ तो लेट्स से मेरे को 5.5% मिलेगा, बट मैं अगर एक नॉन इन्वेस्टमेंट ग्रेड बॉन्ड खरीदूं और उसके साथ में सीडीएस खरीद लूं तो सीडीएस में तो प्रीमियम देना पड़ेगा, तो नेट नेट बैंक वो पैसा काट के मेरे को हर साल मेरे अकाउंट में 6% डाल देगा. सो आई एम बेटर ऑफ बाइंग अ नॉन इन्वेस्टमेंट ग्रेड बॉन्ड एंड बाइंग अ सीडीएस एज अगेंस्ट बाइंग अ ट्रेजरी इन सम केसेस. तो मैंने खरीद लिया बट अब डिफॉल्ट हो गया. नाउ आई डोंट वांट दैट बॉन्ड एनी मोर इन माई पोर्टफोलियो. सो मैं यूजिंग द सीडीएस आई कैन प्रिफर डिलीवरी सेटलमेंट. And especially if you feel that selling that bond outside will be a trouble, because bond markets are not like equities. At times, markets are not liquid. So if I feel that I will not be able to offload my bonds in the open market, then maybe delivery is a better settlement for me. I think so. Let me just quickly revise, what I did with CDS so far. First, conceptually, CDS is a product, is nothing but simple insurance. I pay some annual premium, in return I get a promise. ये जो annual premium देना है, it will always be either, बोलो, 1% or 5%. 1% for investment grade, 5% for non-investment grade. And then what happens in case of a credit event? In case of credit event, seller मेरे को notional principal देगा और उसके बदले में मैं उसको bond लौटा दूंगा, है ना? Now either I can do a delivery or I can do a cash settlement. We have two options. Then we understood how the upfront premium calculation works. Okay, so summary of upfront premium was here. Buyer will always pay to seller 1%, but credit spread 1.5% hai. So we decided we'll always think from buyer perspective. So we will say buyer is underpaying every year. Therefore, buyer should pay upfront. क्योंकि मैं हर साल अंडर पे कर रहा हूं, so therefore I should pay upfront. How much upfront? Difference between coupon and credit spread multiplied with duration. In the same way, look at this example here. Buyer is paying 5% every year, but spread is 4. So यहाँ पे हम लोग बोलेंगे buyer is overpaying every year. Therefore, buyer should receive the upfront premium. So based on that, we can figure out upfront premium कितना होगा और कौन किसको देगा. Once we figure that out, then we can learn to value CDS, which is simple. It would be 100 plus or minus upfront premium. Now, when will you do plus and when will you do minus? So here we learned that जो annual premium है उसको coupon जैसे सोचेंगे और credit spread को YTM जैसे सोचेंगे. And then simple logic, if coupon is more, it's a premium bond, so premium CDS. If coupon is less, discount bond, discount CDS. So based on that, we can figure out whether it's 100 minus or 100 plus. And then finally, towards the end, we looked at cheapest to deliver. ठीक है यहाँ तक? Okay. Can the credit spread change? Yes, of course, Hussein. Credit spread can change every day. I mean, okay, not every day, but it can change frequently. Hanji? Who are the sellers? Everyone. Anyone who wants exposure to credit can be a seller. See, if you think about it, selling CDS is nothing but adding credit to your portfolio, है ना? So bond market में हम लोग पैसे कैसे बनाते हैं? So if you are a bond market participant, technically आपके पास दो opportunities है ना? एक, आप interest rate curve पे खेलो या फिर आप credit पे खेलो. What do you mean by interest rate curve? It means you look at the yield curve, then you estimate whether RBI will increase the rate, reduce the rate, है ना? So this is mostly macroeconomics. Alternatively, credit means you look at Apple's balance sheet and you say, you know what, Apple's credit rating will significantly deteriorate for some reason, or it would significantly improve. Now, adding credit to your portfolio will add spread by 2 to 3%. Yes or no? कोई भी मार्केट, डिपेंडिंग ऑन कौन सा मैं क्रेडिट खरीद रहा हूँ. जैसे आज के रेट में आप इंडिया में देख लो, देयर आर प्लेंटी ऑफ ट्रेजरी ETFs, राइट? सो लेट्स लुक एट Let's look at some GSEC ETF. Okay. So this is a nifty 10-year benchmark GSEC ETF. In India, we generally call them G6, which is what? Government securities. Now, standard deviation, Sharpe ratio, total expense ratio, Government of India, sovereign, blah, 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 blah. Okay, here we go. So these are historical. Somewhere here, if you search enough, it might have an average YTM also somewhere. Okay, but ye dekh lo. So if I'm doing a GSEC, roughly the return that Gilt Index has made, SBI fund, 1 year is 7.5, 7.77, 5 year is this number. Okay. Now instead, if I buy some credit mutual fund, so okay, so they have this one. How can I download fact sheet here? All right, this is some corporate bond fund. Look at the rating, A1, AAA. Is it all investment grade? Yes, right. And let's look at a quick yield on this bond somewhere. Unfortunately, इसका भी yield काफी अच्छा नहीं है. इसका yield अभी 7.72 है. For AAA, I think we should do apple to apple comparison. So let me bring in the current treasury, not the past treasuries. So a current treasury will get you about, I don't know, 5.5 to 6%. So if I buy Government of India bond today, I earn 6%. If I buy a AAA rated corporate bond, I earn roughly about 7.5, right? Both of these are short duration. So which means what is the credit spread? Kitna credit spread hai? 1.5, 2%. Now, there are two ways of earning credit spread. One way of earning credit spread is कि मैं जाके directly corporate bond खरीद लूँ. But imagine how difficult it is for some of these mutual funds in practice to keep on buying corporate bonds. Why is that? Because these are not like equities कि आप exchange में गए खरीद लिए. These are illiquid products. But मेरा investor तो रोज पैसा दे रहा है. है ना? If it's an open-end fund, every day I'm getting money. So what will I do in that case? So I will buy Government of India bond and I will sell CDS. If I sell CDS, I get to earn that 1.5, 2% जो भी ऊपर का spread है. So technically my return will become equal to a corporate bond, right? So all these sellers are ones who are technically bond market investor. इसलिए कभी-कभी investor को CDS में seller कहा जाता है. So you see curriculum question where it will use the word investor typically to seller. कभी-कभी buyer को भी use करता है curriculum, but generally to seller. So it will say that there is an investor who decided to sell a CDS. That means selling a CDS means you're going long on credit. That means you're going long on a bond, conceptually. Now, some of you wondering, okay, if it's such a good product, and it is a good product, right? The whole idea of financial market innovation is कि आपको risk transfer के opportunities बनाना है. So it's a fantastic opportunity. Someone wants to offload credit risk. Someone wants to take a credit risk. What went wrong in 2008 is, again, you've seen the movie, so you have an idea, but we know that these mortgage-backed securities became a large chunk of market because everyone was buying houses in the US, you know, or घर खरीद रहे थे, so they were giving housing loans to random people, which is what has happened in India with giving loans to random groups with this whole JLG business. इंडिया में सेम चीज हुआ ना अभी. So कोई बात नहीं. So एक कॉन्सेप्ट होता है जिसको कहा जाता है माइक्रो फाइनेंस. आपने शायद सुना होगा. सुना है आपने माइक्रो फाइनेंस के बारे में? So in India, a big part of microfinance is basically a business called JLG business, which is a joint liability group. Okay, it's extremely famous in eastern part of the country and even in center. मतलब आपका झारखंड, बिहार, ओडिशा, वहाँ पे ये business बहुत बढ़िया चलता है. Some of the smartest guys in this business, at least the one that I like, and I also like the stock, though for me it's a wait and watch right now. is these folks called Arman. Okay, they are into microfinance business और बहुत सारे ऐसे क्रेडिट ग्रामीण और दुनिया भर के ये नहीं है बट ऐसे माइक्रो फाइनेंस में बहुत सारे बिजनेसेस है. नाउ व्हाट इज अ जेएलजी? इट्स बेसिकली अ ग्रुप ऑफ लेट्स से जो एक गांव में 4-5 लेट्स से औरतों का ग्रुप है. So when the loan is given to one person, technically the other women are guarantor of the loan. Now because in a rural India the social construct is very strong, है ना, कि आपको पता है कि everyone, it's a completely trust based system. So technically these are good guarantors because if this person, particular woman does not repay, then she lose her social standing. समझ में आ रहा है? However, what has been observed in India is microfinance goes through a 4 to 5 year cycle. So right now we are at the bottom of the cycle. There has been massive level of defaults in the JLG group. और इसमें दिक्कत क्या होता है ना कि if one person defaults, there is a moral pressure on that person क्योंकि सोसाइटी में इज्जत खराब हो रहा है ना. But if everyone defaults, तो फिर चलता है ना. 4-5 लोगों का ग्रुप है, एक बंदे के पास पैसे नहीं है तो दिक्कत है ना, क्योंकि बाकी लोग ठीक कर रहे हैं, बट अब सब साथ में नहीं दे रहे तो फिर चलता है. सो प्रॉब्लम दैट दीज गाइज हैव हैड इज जो रिकवरी एजेंट सब माइक्रो फाइनेंस में काम करता है, उन उन लोगों ने थोड़ा प्रेशर डालने का कोशिश किया होगा, उनको भगा दिया गाँव वालों ने. सो नाउ ऑल दीज रिकवरी एजेंट्स हैव हैड मैसिव एट्रिशन. कितना एट्रिशन? 40%. The 40% of the recovery agent have left in last 18 months. क्यों? क्योंकि वो गांव में जा रहे हैं रिकवरी करने के लिए, उनको सब भगा रहे हैं. एंड देन दीज गाइज आर मोस्टली पेड ऑन इंसेंटिव, नॉट ऑन सैलरी. सो रिकवरी नहीं हो पा रहा है, सो वो लोग जॉब छोड़ रहे हैं, है ना. ये फिलहाल दिक्कत है इंडस्ट्री में. बट एनीवेज, बट दिस इज हाउ द साइकिल गोज. सो आई विल हिट माय पॉइंट क्विकली. सो मे बी if I'm a long-term bond investor, what would I do? I would basically have exposure to this type of credit risk in this cycle, because यहाँ पे मैं I'll keep on making money, but then I will offload my exposure to this type of credit risk in this cycle. समझ में आ रहा है? So US में क्या हुआ कि they kept on lending mortgages, and again the cycle in the US is same. They kept on lending to mortgages. What was the assumption? It's a secured loan. और हम लोग जनरली लेंडिंग इंडस्ट्री में ये कहते हैं कि कोई भी सिक्योर्ड धंधा है तो देयर इज एन अंडरलाइंग कोलैटरल, सो इट्स अ सेफ बुक. व्हाट इज इट सिक्योर्ड अगेंस्ट? सिक्योर्ड अगेंस्ट अ हाउस. सो द होल प्रीमाइस वाज कि घर का कीमत कम नहीं होगा, राइट. बट वेरी क्विकली यूएस मार्केट टर्न इनटू अ ओवर सप्लाई टेरिटरी एंड अंडर बॉट ओवर सप्लाइड टेरिटरी. ओवर सप्लाइड की वजह से इसका प्राइस गिर गया, विच ट्रिगर्ड मैसिव पे ऑफ. इट ट्रिगर्ड मैसिव डिफॉल्ट्स. When defaults increased, तो डिफॉल्ट होने की वजह से वो जो एमबीएस जो प्रोडक्ट्स थे उनका क्रेडिट रिस्क बढ़ गया, उनका प्राइस गिरने लगा. उनका प्राइस गिरने लगा तो उनके जो सीडीएस थे उनका प्राइस बढ़ने लगा. एंड दीज sellers were supposed to make losses good. Now what sellers did is they sold substantially more than what they could afford to pay. So अब seller के पर्सपेक्टिव से सोचो, सीडीएस सेलिंग इज काइंड ऑफ सिमिलर टू ऑप्शन सेलिंग. ठीक है. सो सोचो कि हर टक्का हर साल में आप मेरे पास आते हो और आप बोलते हो कि उत्कर्ष 100 करोड़ का सीडीएस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट बनाएंगे, हम तेरे को हर साल 1% देंगे. सो आई सेड फाइन, वेरी नाइस. नेक्स्ट ईयर यू केम एंड यू सेड उत्कर्ष नाउ वी नीड 500 crore CDS. आई सेड श्योर, फैंटास्टिक, नो प्रॉब्लम. सो नाउ यू आर पेइंग मी 1% एवरी ईयर. सो आप लोग मेरे को हर साल 5 करोड़ दे रहे हो, मैं खुशी से अपना जिंदगी जी रहा हूँ. अब 4-5 साल के बाद डिफॉल्ट हो गया. आप मेरे पास आए, आपने कहा कि अभी 500 करोड़ दो. देन यू रियलाइज कि मेरे पास तो 500 करोड़ है ही नहीं, है ना. एंड दैट्स द थिंग विथ इंश्योरेंस. ऑल ओवर द वर्ल्ड कोई भी इंश्योरेंस कंपनी हो, दे हैव टू हैव सर्टन मिनिमम कैपिटल रिक्वायरमेंट. जैसे यूएस में सॉल्वेंसी 2 रूल्स है, इंडिया में रूल्स है. बट इन द यूएस ड्यूरिंग दैट 2008 क्राइसिस, in order to sell CDS, आपके पास कोई भी कैपिटल रिक्वायरमेंट का जरूरत नहीं था. So which means they sold insurance, but when the losses happened, they had no money to pay back, and that's what triggered the whole crisis. बाकी अब मूवी में देख लो. Okay. Chalo, let's close the books. Let's do a little bit of jamming. Tomorrow we'll practice questions on CDS from CFA curriculum. Chalo, books बंद करो. आयुष से शुरू करता है. ठीक है. So we'll start with November candidates first. Huh? I'm guessing you guys are already well revised. आयुष पर जरा फोकस कर. शाबाश. चल आयुष, let us start. I'll first start easy. Distance between any two adjacent nodes in a binomial tree is how much?
2 standard deviation.
2 standard deviation.
Yes.
Is it correct? Okay. When I'm valuing a bond using a binomial tree, I start at the last year cash flow and then I kind of discount it backwards. What is that method called?
Backward. Backward.
Backward what?
Induction नहीं. सर मुझे प्रोसेस पता है क्या बोलते हैं.
ये इसका ऑनलाइन कैन यू इज आयुष ऑडिबल टू यू? यस, ओके, हाँ. सो उस प्रोसेस को बोलते हैं बैकवर्ड इंडक्शन. ठीक है. इफ इट्स अ कॉलेबल बॉन्ड, what will be the call rule that I will apply when I'm using the tree?
Like for example, अगर 100 par value है,
हाँ,
तो अगर उससे ऊपर रहेगा तो कॉल होगा.
हाँ, it's a callable bond.
हाँ, तो हम कॉल करेंगे उस केस.
तो हम कॉल करेंगे, correct. So which means you will replace that price with
the par,
whatever is the call price, है ना? It's not always par, कुछ भी हो सकता है, but whatever is the strike price of that call option. So you will ensure that the price of the bond is not going beyond or above the strike price. अगर उसके ऊपर चला गया, we'll replace that with the strike price itself. ठीक है. Ayush, what is a caller?
Caller.
हाँ.
सर जिसने बॉन्ड सेल किया है और अगर कॉल ट्रिगर होता है तो ही कैन कॉल बैक द बॉन्ड.
CALLER कॉलर नहीं बाबा. COLLA. बहुत ही अच्छे. CALLER वाला एक्सप्लेनेशन दे रहा है कि बॉन्ड जो कॉल करता है उसको कॉलर बोलते हैं. COLLAR कॉलर नहीं. चलो कोई बात नहीं. फिर आप थोड़ा साइड में सरक के खड़े हो ना, ताकि जब पीछे वाला खड़ा हो तो उसकी शक्ल दिखे. चलो हर्ष, तैयार?
यस सर.
सॉरी, आपका नाम से ही बोल रहा हूँ ना?
हाँ सर.
हाँ. कॉलर कैसे बनता है?
सर नहीं पता है. कॉलर
नहीं बता आपको? ओके, कोई बात नहीं, खड़े हो जाओ. लेट्स गो टू द बॉन्ड ट्रस्टी किट. आपका नाम क्या? अभिषेक. अभिषेक के नाम है ना? हाँ अभिषेक, बोलो.
नहीं पता.
कॉलर नहीं बता आपको? कोई बात नहीं, खड़े हो जाओ. मुर्गा बनाना चाहिए. नवंबर एग्जाम में आपकी 2 महीने आपको कॉलर नहीं पता क्या होता? हाँ, विराज के पास जाओ.
सर कौन से सब्जेक्ट में है ये?
तू खड़े रहे और मुर्गा बन जरूर. ऐसे नहीं, इसको मुर्गा बनाओ सही में. कौन बोलेगा मेरे को व्हाट इज अ कॉलर? हर्ष के पास चले जाओ भाई. हाँ हर्ष.
लॉन्ग पुट, लॉन्ग स्टॉप और शॉर्ट कॉल.
दैट्स इट. दैट्स सिंपल. क्या है मतलब? कौन से सब्जेक्ट में? मतलब क्या शर्म आनी चाहिए आपको. कॉलर क्या है पूछ रहे हैं मेरे को? लेवल 2 में हो आप. कॉलर मतलब जैसे मेरे पास कोई स्टॉक है और मैंने उस पर पुट खरीद लिया. ठीक है, तो पुट खरीदने का पर्पस क्या है?
डाउन साइड
कि नीचे वाला प्रोटेक्शन चाहिए. बट नुकसान क्या है? प्रीमियम चला गया. तो फिर ऊपर के साइड में मैंने कॉल बेच दिया ताकि मैं कुछ प्रीमियम को रिकवर कर पाऊं. सो स्टॉक प्लस अ पुट minus a call. That means long stock, long put, short call. This structure when I create, it creates a risk reward in a limited range. नीचे के साइड में पुट ऑप्शन प्रोटेक्ट करेगा, ऊपर के साइड में मैक्सिमम बेनिफिट इज कैप्ड एट द कॉलर, दैट्स इट। मतलब ऊपर वाला कैप उसको कहते हैं कॉलर। आया समझ में? ठीक है, यश के पास जाओ। यश, आसान पूछूं या? चलो ये बताओ कि एक कंपनी अगर बोनस शेयर इशू कर रहा है तो उसका अकाउंटिंग ट्रीटमेंट क्या होगा?
बोनस शेयर इशू,
If a company is issuing bonus shares, what is the accounting treatment for it?
my equity capital will go up, my paid-in capital will go up, and my cash
Cash flow will?
increase on my balance.
Cash will decrease.
Increase
Increase.
on a balance sheet.
मेरे को कौन दे रहा है कैश?
And cash will not increase because of bonus shares.
तो फिर क्या?
तो फिर इक्विटी और पेड इन कैपिटल ऊपर जाएगा।
हाँ, नहीं?
नहीं,
I'm disappointed. Who will tell me how to account for bonus share? थोड़ा अनजूम करना पूर्ण क्लास देखो। How to account for सम्यक आपको आता है? विराज, ओके विराज को दो।
Sir, cash will decrease because it is like to giving up dividends.
No sir. Bonus share is not like giving up dividends. Buyback is like dividends. बोनस शेयर मीन्स आप मेरे कंपनी के शेयर होल्डर हो, मैं आपके पास आया और आपको 100 शेयर्स फ्री में देके चला गया। हाउ विल आई डू काउंटिंग फॉर इट? हाँ, पीछे आपका नाम क्या है सर?
Rishabh,
ऋषभ। हाँ ऋषभ बोलो।
the number of shares will increase.
नंबर ऑफ शेयर्स विल इंक्रीज।
I think that's just
हाँ,
उतना ही है शायद। Number of shares will increase.
no it's not. Okay, I'll tell you what. Number of shares will increase, face value will not change. बोनस शेयर में फेस वैल्यू चेंज नहीं होता, स्टॉक स्प्लिट में चेंज होता है। सो इफ नंबर ऑफ शेयर्स आर इंक्रीजिंग बट फेस वैल्यू इज सेम, तो आपका जो ऊपर वाला पेड इन कैपिटल है वो तो बढ़ेगा ना, क्योंकि नंबर ऑफ शेयर्स डबल हो गए तो पेड इन कैपिटल बढ़ गया। तो फिर इक्विटी तो साइड बढ़ गया बट कैश तो आ नहीं रहा है, तो मैं क्या करूंगा? रिजर्व कम कर दूंगा। सो इट्स अ सिंपल अकाउंटिंग एंट्री वेर यू डिडक्ट मनी फ्रॉम रिजर्व एंड मूव दैट टू पेड इन कैपिटल, बस खत्म। इक्विटी के अंदर ही दोनों आइटम्स है, रिजर्व भी इक्विटी के अंडर है, पेड इन कैपिटल जस्ट डिस्क्लोजर रिक्वायरमेंट, रिजर्व से पैसा हटा के ऊपर के साइड में डाल दो, समझे? ओके, नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन। इफ यू आंसर दिस राइट then you can come and pick up any book that you like from my shelf today. Challenge question, but उसके लिए पहले हाथ उठाना पड़ेगा। So I'll pick any one of you, raise your hand first. I'll tell you what question is on, it's on derivative. You have nothing to lose, the worst thing that happens to you is I'll make you stand. If you win, you get to win a book, risk reward is in your favor. बोलो, कौन करेगा आंसर? डेरिवेटिव का क्वेश्चन है। नहीं जिस नहीं, पहले वाह, पहले हाथ उठाओ। चलो एक ही लड़का है क्लास में, उसके बाद चलते हैं। आदित्य, आदित्य को माइक दे रहा हूं। आदित्य, मेरे क्वेश्चन थोड़ा सीक्वेंस में आएगा, मैं पहले सेटअप बना रहा हूं। मतलब ये मेन क्वेश्चन नहीं है, ये बोल रहा हूं, मेन क्वेश्चन आगे आएगा। इफ अ कंपनी पेज डिविडेंड, व्हाट हैपेंस टू इट्स स्टॉक प्राइस?
You should answer.
Yes.
It comes down.
It comes down, right? क्यों?
Because like you're distributing the
Yeah.
cash
Can you
of
keep the mic like this? हाँ.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like you're distributing the cash of the company. So
Correct. So you're distributing the cash of the company, so automatically the value of
The
the
stock price
cash
will
on the
come
balance sheet will reduce, stock price will go down.
Yes.
Correct. Now, if I own a put option and company announces dividend, and you just told me that because of dividend the stock price will go down, so then in that case what happens to the owner of the put option, long put? Does it benefit long put or does it hurt non-put. For example, I bought put option on Reliance Industry. Reliance Industry आके कल dividend announce कर दिया. Now, because the dividend is paid or ex-dividend, the Reliance stock price will fall down. So, for long put, is it a benefit or a loss?
No change.
Why is no change?
Because total benefit is the same for the one who's holding the stock.
आप मेरे सेटअप वाले क्वेश्चन में फंस गए. मेन क्वेश्चन तक आने ही नहीं दिया.
For
देखो भाई, देखो जैसे आई हैव अ राइट टू सेल एट 100. ठीक है. नाउ रिलायंस शेयर वाज ट्रेडिंग एट 100 रुपीज, लेट्स से एट द मनी ऑप्शन. रिलायंस केम, बोला कि मैं 20 रुपया डिविडेंड दूंगा. अब 20 रुपए के डिविडेंड में रिलायंस का शेयर 80 रुपया हो गया. बट आई हैव अ राइट टू सेल एट 100.
yeah,
सो फिर तो फायदा हो गया ना.
हाँ,
तो फिर
that way, yes.
so it will benefit me.
Yes, yes.
You know? Okay. So now my main question, but now let's see if you can answer this. What is that threshold dividend level at which it will not benefit me? There's a threshold level of dividend when company announce that then it does not benefit the owner of the put option.
Premium paid.
Premium paid?
Yeah.
No. I'll tell you, the answer is not in premium, the answer is in dividend yield. There is a threshold dividend yield. Depending on that, it will benefit the owner of the put option or not benefit the owner of the put option. Do you know what is the dividend yield?
No, sir.
Okay. Can anyone, now open question to anyone in the classroom. Answer me the question and pick up whatever you like. Can anyone answer this question? Okay. The answer is 2%. ठीक है. So मैं आपको समझाता हूँ क्या होता है. देखो ध्यान से सुनो. Let's assume Reliance का शेयर. I have a right to sell, strike price 100 रुपीज. मतलब मैं रिलायंस का शेयर 100 रुपए में बेच सकता हूँ. और सोचो कि रिलायंस का शेयर आज भी 100 रुपए में ही ट्रेड कर रहा है. मतलब एट द मनी ऑप्शन. अब रिलायंस आया और बोला कि 20 रुपया डिविडेंड ले लो. तो 100 रुपए का स्टॉक कितना हो गया? 80 रुपया. बट आई हैव अ राइट टू सेल एट हाउ मच? 100 रुपीज. सो टेक्निकली फायदा कितना हो गया? 20 रुपया. मतलब डिविडेंड देने से स्टॉक प्राइस गिरता है और स्टॉक प्राइस गिरने से पुट ऑप्शन ओनर को बेनिफिट होता है. यहां तक ठीक है? हाउएवर, अगर रिलायंस बहुत बड़ी अमाउंट की डिविडेंड दे रहा है तो एक्सचेंज आपकी स्ट्राइक प्राइस को एडजस्ट करता है. ठीक है. सो मैंने रिलायंस के एग्जांपल में मेरी स्ट्राइक प्राइस कितनी थी? आई हैड अ राइट टू सेल एट 100. अब रिलायंस का स्टॉक प्राइस भी 100 रुपया था. रिलायंस ने आके बोला कि मैं 20 रुपया डिविडेंड दूंगा. 20 रुपया डिविडेंड मतलब कितना डिविडेंड हो गया? 20%. एक्सचेंज कहता है कि कोई भी डिविडेंड यील्ड 2% से ऊपर हो तो हम प्रोपोर्शनेटली सब स्ट्राइक प्राइसेस को एडजस्ट करेंगे. तो रिलायंस ने जब 20 रुपए का डिविडेंड दिया तो जो मेरा पुट ऑप्शन था जिसका स्ट्राइक प्राइस था 100 रुपया, उसका नया स्ट्राइक प्राइस हो जाएगा 100 माइनस 20 80. और रिलायंस का स्टॉक भी हो जाएगा 80. दैट मीन्स आई विल हैव zero benefit. So the answer I was hoping you will give is that strike prices are adjusted downwards based on the amount of dividend if the dividend crosses a threshold of 2% dividend yield. समझा क्या? ठीक है. Okay. आप खड़े हो जाओ सर. Let's get back to level 2 again. सम्यक के पास चलता है. सम्यक, आज की डेट में आप अगर ग्लोबल एक्सचेंजेस देखो तो सिल्वर और गोल्ड, खास करके सिल्वर बैकवर्डेशन मार्केट में चल रहा है. सो सबसे पहले व्हाट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ बैकवर्डेशन एंड व्हाई डू यू थिंक दैट्स हैपनिंग टू सिल्वर राइट नाउ?
A backwardation market is where the spot prices are greater than future prices.
Spot prices are greater than future. That means future is cheaper.
Yes.
Okay. And why does it happen?
If the commodity is overvalued, I think.
If the commodity is overvalued, no. think of basic equation of future pricing. Spot plus all the cost
Yes.
minus all the
Benefit.
benefits. So now the future price is lower. What does it mean?
No benefit of holding.
Huh?
There's no benefiting.
If there was no benefit, then my future price would have become spot plus cost.
Yes. Yeah. Oh.
So that means future price would have been higher.
Higher.
If the markets are in backwardation, that means benefits are
Higher.
higher than the cost, है ना? तो सोचो कि spot 100 रुपए का, cost 10 रुपए का. So 100 plus 10, 110. But if my benefit is 12 rupees, then the market will come in backwardation. If my benefit is 8 rupees, market will remain in contango. ठीक है? So I told you that silver today is trading in backwardation market. Means what?
The benefit is higher than the cost of.
That's correct. That means the benefit is more than the cost, right? And in commodity market, what is that benefit? In equities, I get dividends. Bond market, I get coupons. In commodity market, what benefit do I get?
Holding period return.
Correct. In commodity market, I get convenience yield. Remember convenience yield?
Sort of.
No? Okay, आप उठ जाओ पीछे कूदो. हाँ, आप बताओ convenience yield क्या होता है?
Benefit of holding a commodity.
Correct. What do you mean by benefit of holding commodity?
Increase in price, if you can say.
हाँ?
Increase in price.
Increase in price तो future में भी मिलेगा ना?
It's not measurable, I think, like convenience yield.
वो तो measurable नहीं है, सही कह रहे हो. But what do you mean by benefit of holding commodity? मतलब क्या मैं सोने पे गद्दी बना के बैठूंगा, उसका बेड बनाऊंगा क्या?
Well, I mean, maybe I can lend it out and earn something.
उसको तो लीज यील्ड बोलते हैं, उसको कन्वीनियंस यील्ड नहीं बोलते.
Benefit तो है ना per sir.
अरे तो वो अलग बेनिफिट है ना, वो तो भाड़ा है, उसको लीज यील्ड कहते हैं, वो डिफरेंट बेनिफिट है. मेरा सवाल ये है कि कन्वीनियंस यील्ड क्या है? आप कह रहे हो सही है, बेनिफिट ऑफ होल्डिंग एन एसेट, बट इट्स एन इनकम्प्लीट आंसर. मैंने आपको लेवल 1 में चाय वाला एग्जांपल दिया था कि मेरी चाय की दुकान है. डज एनीवन रिमेंबर? ओके, लेट्स गो टू ऋषभ. हाँ ऋषभ बोलो.
The supply will
विराज
go
खाली
down.
बस.
The supply will go down and demand will shot up.
Yes, when the supply is less, demand is more. That time convenience yields typically spike, and that times the markets typically go in backwardation. So silver market going in backwardation now basically is indicating कि demand बहुत ज़्यादा है और supply कम है. बट अभी भी आपने वो नहीं बताया कि कन्वीनियंस यील्ड मतलब किस तरीके का बेनिफिट ऑफ होल्डिंग द एसेट. इट्स इनकम्प्लीट. उसके आगे बोलो. होल्डिंग द एसेट,
Physically.
होल्डिंग द फिजिकल एसेट वर्सेस वर्सेस अ फ्यूचर कॉन्ट्रैक्ट, राइट? होल्डिंग फिजिकल एसेट वर्सेस बाइंग इट इन द फ्यूचर. सो विच मीन्स, and multiple interpretation to it, but for example at level 1 I give you that चाय वाला example कि मेरी चाय की दुकान है. हर सुबह मैंने फ्यूचर कॉन्ट्रैक्ट बना के रखा है दूध वाले के साथ कि रोज सुबह आके 10 लीटर देके जाए, है ना? दिस इज अ फ्यूचर कॉन्ट्रैक्ट. वर्सेस मैं एक साथ 300 लीटर खरीद के रेफ्रिजरेटर में रख दिया. अब रोज 10 लीटर वाला चाय बिकता है, बट एक दिन सोचो कि अचानक से आयुष जैसा बड़ा पार्टी आ गया, बोला कि 50 लीटर का चाय बना के दो. In case if I have future, I will not be able to execute the trade, है ना? बट अगर मैंने फ्रिज में पूरा 300 लीटर दूध रखा है तो फिर मैं वो चाय बना के बेच सकता हूं. सो देयर इज सम बेनिफिट ऑफ हैविंग फिजिकल कमोडिटी विथ यू वर्सेस गेटिंग अ फ्यूचर डिलीवरी. दैट इंटेंजिबल बेनिफिट इज रिफर्ड टू एज कन्वीनियंस यील्ड. सो व्हाई silver in convenience backwardation market today? One theory, which is assignment I gave some of you in the morning today. The theory is that, and it's a conspiracy theory, but I want to dig into it a little bit, that globally a lot of these silver ETFs, silver ETF ना, जैसे इंडिया में HDFC है, काफी है. When they buy silver, they are supposed to take physical delivery of silver, है ना? मैं जब ETF खरीद रहा हूं तो मतलब वो बैंक के पास कहीं पे फिजिकल, वो एसेट मैनेजमेंट कंपनी के पास कहीं पे फिजिकल सिल्वर पड़ा है, but these guys actually buy silver in London market, and the physical delivery is kept in London vault because silver, the value to weight ratio is very low. मतलब सिल्वर अगर आप 1 करोड़ का सिल्वर खरीदो तो पता नहीं कितना 50, 100, 200 किलो आ जाएगा, कितना आएगा, कितने का आता है एक सिल्वर, 1 किलो भी
150.
1.25 लाख का ना, तो ऑलमोस्ट 100 किलो 80 किलो सिल्वर आएगा. अब सोचो कि 1 करोड़ का सिल्वर खरीद लिया तो 80 किलो सिल्वर मेरे को स्टोर करना पड़ेगा. 80 किलो मतलब इतना जगह लग जाएगा, है ना. सो सिल्वर में स्टोरेज इज अ बिग इशू. So therefore what they do with silver is they typically keep all the silver in London vaults. मतलब लंदन में कोई ऐसा सिक्योर लोकेशन है जहाँ पे सिल्वर रखा जाता है. फिर दैट वॉल्ट बेसिकली इशूज अ रिसिप्ट लाइक अ पावती कि हाँ आपका 50 किलो सिल्वर हमारे पास पड़ा है. The conspiracy theory in the market is that the actual silver in the London vault is substantially lower than the number of certificates these guys have issued. Okay. Now, even though it's a conspiracy theory, somewhat similar incident happened with a precious metal or a metal called palladium. ठीक है, ये 2010 में ऐसे ही कुछ इंसिडेंट हुआ था where the inventory in the vault was substantially lower than the certificates which were issued. So therefore, it's interesting times with what's happening in precious metal. So we need to kind of dig a little bit more on this. But with this, my session is over. Thank you very much. You guys were a sport. कल थोड़ा प्रिपेयर करके आना, नहीं तो वापस खड़ा करूंगा.